Right. Well, it's a really sad day in America. I think sad day in history. We'll look back on this day where political assassinations in the United States to someone who wasn't even elected happened today. Beloved Charlie Kirk, who was a incredible person, mind, advocate. One of the things that drew me to him. And then, of course, founded Turning Point USA when he was 18. He started the movement, I believe, when he was 18 years old. He's 31, who was killed tragically, not killed, assassinated today, politically assassinated at an event at Utah Valley University. I used to live out there. I attended school out in Utah. I know the area well. My brother, who lives in Orem, where that happened, his daughter is a student at Utah Valley. So my niece attends. She was not at she was inside. She did not attend the event because that's not her thing. And she thought it was too many people, so she didn't go. But it did take her several hours to get cleared to go home. So an amazing man, family man, unapologetic Christian, which was so refreshing to see someone young who was not afraid to say that they loved Christ and they knew that the most important thing in this life was that Christ had died for them and that there was life after for those who do take upon themselves the name of Christ. An amazing man, father of two young children, I believe one and three, both boys, who's now leaving them and his wife. Um, Too young, senseless. We're going to get into that, but I think producer Victor, we want to talk to you about your connection. You're in Arizona. You've spent a lot of time with Turning Point USA, which is headquartered there, and a lot, not Charlie Kirk in particular, but a lot of his team members. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that, and I think we have some clips just showing how great someone only 31 years old, how many great things he had already accomplished.
Absolutely, it's a very sad day, and in fact, it's been a really sad week with a lot of tragic events taking place. And as someone noted, it is indeed a turning point for the United States of America. Charlie was a legend and very well known here in Arizona. I went to Arizona State University, so I witnessed this presence of Turning Point USA firsthand. And the organization was brilliant, right? The concept around Change My Mind went viral. A lot of other political influencers and activists tried to duplicate, copy that type of format, but I think Charlie was so authentic and genuine in his approach to all like-minded individuals, opponents, in instances where others would have lost patience. He continued to articulate and try and genuinely change people's minds with facts, with words, pretty much proving that's what this country is built on, freedom. I believe the t-shirt that he had on today said freedom on it, and unfortunately blood was shed, and it's very difficult to find the right words, but we can speak to what he left behind. Of course, a beautiful family and the impact that he's made. I did see a lot of activities that Turning Point put together countrywide as well as here locally. I think even opponents respected Charlie and the organization in many ways because it was always based around the dialogue, right? I personally went to Florida back in the day when President Trump spoke to students, and Turning Point played a crucial role building bridges and helping students get involved in politics and set up their careers or help with the passions that they had for certain issues, whether those are social, political, or economic. So on that note, we have a compilation, and I can tell you from my research, there are thousands of those. Many, many hours of Charlie Kirk's direct dialogue with his supporters, with the opponents, individuals nationwide, and a very articulate, very genuine person. Let's take a look and see how those events typically went and what's the format that became so famous and known thanks to Charlie.
And before you press play on that, Victor, just want to set the context is that he was an amazing speaker and orator. He was able to reach people, young people who were sick of not knowing what their future would be like. And he gave them a voice to go out and do something about it, to channel their values to someone who thought similarly to them. And they said, if Charlie Kirk is out there doing this, then I can do this too. I can be out there and I can say, no, that's not right. Or how about we do this? And he wasn't a fear monger. He wasn't someone who ever advocated for violence. He advocated for discussion, dialogue, courteous dialogue, and being able to share our ideas, not our fists or our weapons. And so with that, I think everyone who sees these videos, and for some people who are just turning into Charlie Kirk for the first time because they heard the news, you'll see what a fantastic orator he was and how much faith he had. Um, let's go ahead and get
We got racism all over the U.S. We just had a race riot 3 years ago. Oh my God! And then we had all 50 states plus 18 countries.
Let me tell you, it is not an argument in your favor that we're a racist country because blacks decide to start burning down Wendy's and stealing stuff. That's called criminality.
Actually, it is. Yeah, black people were burning it down. Why? Racism. Racism was a big issue, and we can pretend that it's not a big issue, but hey, if you don't want to, then that's just called being obtuse. And that's why I asked you, why did you have such a big problem with talking about racism? So
let me give you some examples of racism that could be proven. How about affirmative action at this college that discriminates against Asian students and white students? How about affirmative action hiring practices in the federal government? We are such a decent, non-racist country. The best example that he has is to show that he was mistreated. And if he acted like this at the DeSantis event, I can see why he was kicked out of the DeSantis event.
A flag outside of somebody's house, I just automatically assume you racist.
Oh, most definitely. But we felt that way for years. Like, I'm 51, and even as a kid, we knew. It was understood. If there was an American flag at their house, they some racist-ass white mother. That's just what it was. I thought everybody thought that, or knew that. It's funny to see that they're saying it now, and it's like it's kind of new, but no. Yeah, been thinking about that, thought that forever.
Well, then leave the country, but they won't, because America is such a great country that even those who say they hate it refuse to leave.
So, Charlie, I don't know if you knew from the everywhere around everything all the time, but this month is in fact Pride Month. Which, what did you tweet the other day?
Pride is a sin.
So we're going to look at some companies and see what they have done to put themselves on the woke map in terms of Pride Month. First one here is Monopoly. This, I feel like, is kind of lazy. I don't think they actually put too much effort in it. They just look.
It doesn't look any different.
Well, they just took some of the properties and like organized them in a rainbow-esque way.
Oh, I mean, this is pretty weak. I mean, if you're trying to actually pay tribute to the holy relic of Pride Month, there's no like reaccommodation. Where's the trans flag in that? That's so like 2009 Pride style. Well, by the way, how many letters are we at?
I think we're at 17 now.
No, I think it is LGBTQIA+, right?
There's a 2 in there somewhere for Two-Spirit.
No, is it really?
You know, we all live on the same planet. Borders are made up, man. The planet's dying.
Okay, so great question. Why do borders matter? Because borders are a distinction and a physical delineation of when good ideas start and bad ideas start. For example,
are you saying the United States is the good side and the other side?
Without a doubt, our laws are much more moral than the laws in Mexico, without a shadow of a doubt. We have due process, we have cross-examination of witnesses, we have the rule of law. You know what happens when you illegally immigrate to Mexico? You get deported back to your home country. Why don't we do the same? Secondly, if the walls don't work, why does Mexico have a wall on their southern border with Guatemala? You protect your own country because you care about your citizens, not because you hate the people on the outside.
I think the government has a moral obligation to protect innocent life when confronted with the question of someone intervening to end that life.
I think there's a bit of a difference, and the analogy that I usually use, or the question that I usually ask pro-life people, is do you believe that the government should mandate organ donation? We say that you shouldn't have to donate your organs, but the pro-life case seems to extend to the idea that even people who are living should have to give up their kidneys to people in hospitals, maybe?
I don't quite see it that way. Well, first of all, again, in 99.67% of the cases, the woman made a choice that could potentially...
And what about those 0.4%? What do you think should happen then?
Oh, I think the baby should be delivered. Doing something wrong after something evil is never the right thing. So, I mean, when it comes to mandating organ donations, I don't even see how that's applicable to the question. Because in 99.6% of the cases, the mother made a choice to be able to get pregnant.
Lots of videos, and
we could go on and on and on, right? And his fearlessness, many have said, may have cost him his life. And so I think we need to talk about where we go from now, as people who are Americans who maybe disagree and have different viewpoints, but have always thought that they would be able to speak those viewpoints without fear of injury or even death. Let alone getting canceled, which has happened, or having your livelihood taken away because you believe something differently. Charlie Kirk was fearless to that. Do you, as I'm talking, maybe you could look up the clip. I want to show the clip where on election night, I think if you just do a quick search, you'll see Charlie Kirk breaks down in 2024, where he finds out that President Trump has won because of just the amount of passion he put in to get younger people, college-age students and others out there to vote. And here's the thing, I'm in my 50s. I was a huge fan of Charlie Kirk. I watched his podcast. I listened to his shows. I didn't care about his age. I cared about his ideas. And he taught me so much at such a young age. And that is just admirable beyond when you can connect with people who are older with you on intellectual issues. That says a lot about your aptitude and your character. And Charlie Kirk he just wasn't a voice for young people. He was a voice for so many Americans who tuned in to Charlie Kirk when something crazy was going on in Washington and wanted to see what he thought about it. I definitely turned into Charlie on issues about protecting the unborn. That's something that he and I definitely shared similar views on. And I would check in with and see what Charlie Kirk thinks about the situation. He really was an advocate for free speech and engaging. He went to Oxford. He was a great debater. Nobody wanted to debate Charlie Kirk. He'd end up losing. I mean, I think there are very few people on the left or whatever political direction in the middle, libertarian, that could ever really make their arguments stand very long against Charlie Kirk. And that's a gift. Interesting thing is he bragged quite a bit that he did not have a college degree. And he spoke a lot about reforming education so that it could be useful. He wasn't against the idea of education. He was against the idea of how we're doing it now. And the infiltration of ideologies into our educational system. You and I have discussed this, our guests have discussed this on the show. That if we really want to be a free country, we have to let all sorts of ideologies exist at the same time and let students decide, not have professors pressure them. Yes, this is it. This was such a great moment here, and just make sure that you know that we're just showing the part there where Charlie gets a little emotional.
Give you credit from right here in Pennsylvania. You were the guy, you and Tyler, convinced back to your home state, own Pennsylvania. That will be the deciding factor. I thought you guys were nuts. We knocked 500,000 doors. We delivered Pennsylvania, and now we've got our country back. Let's do this, baby. Woo! Come on.
Let's go.
There it is.
So this is where they just announced that Pennsylvania was called for President Trump. And now it's clear that President Trump has won the election. And this is his wife coming out to an emotional
run on. Huge win. Oh my gosh. This almost seems a little surreal.
Everybody should remember this moment. Look, I'm gonna echo Charlie from earlier. Remember where you were when this happened. Remember where you were when you realized that the Uniparty and all of these, just the establishment, they did not expect this.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. A lot of people disagreed with Charlie Kirk and his politics, but you can't disagree with his passion and his commitment. And I think that's what will stay with us. I have no idea if people are going to be coward now. And have you got any updates from that? I think I saw an X about from FBI Director Kash Patel saying that they do have someone in custody. Is that correct?
That's the last tweet on X that I've seen.
Right. So we'll see. I'm definitely a person who hates any kind of violence or war. I mean, you're in the military. I would hate if you had to go to a war and be in danger. I think most people don't want that. But the fact that this is happening, it can't all be, I think, dismissed by some mental illness or some other issues going on. Perhaps we don't know what we don't know yet. It could be a very ill individual, but it's probably someone who was trained well enough to make a shot about 200 or 300 yards away, probably. That was a rifle shot. Both you and I know that. I mean, anyone who's been around those weapons knows what kind of shot that was. There's no way that was a handgun. So we've got that information. But I think the bigger discussion people have to have is, are we really a country where a difference of opinions is allowed? And if someone disagrees with opinions so much, are they able to end the life of somebody else? And it's not even ending a life. Are they able to ruin a life? So many conservatives had their lives ruined by getting canceled for just having their viewpoints and not being able to support their families because they believed a certain way. I hope that we're going to get to a point, Victor, where we stop this. Clearly, justice has to happen, but I think whoever commits these acts, they are hoping like terrorists. This is a domestic terrorist, 100%. I hope they're treated this way, or they are arrested and proved to be the actual killer, the assassin, that I hope that they will be treated that way as a domestic terrorist. I think what they want to accomplish is pretty clear. By shooting Charlie Kirk, they think they're going to destroy a movement, perhaps. They think that maybe now no one will go to these events and there will be no more opposition to their ideas. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that there'll probably be different ways to communicate to people than in large public venues that are hard to, if you don't have the Secret Service or people sweeping every area for someone to come. I have no idea what it's going to mean for both sides. Now, in fairness, has there been violence against the left? I think a couple issues that I was looking at. Again, mentally ill people, but Speaker Pelosi, whom I know, her husband was attacked. I think there were other incidents of people on the left who were also attacked. So, but to the extent where they're shot at, I think this has so far been a fairly conservative thing. Conservatives have been on the end of this with President Trump. Someone did remind me, Gabby Giffords, from your state of Arizona. Her husband is Senator Kelly. She was shot in the head in Arizona, a Democrat congresswoman at the time. So it does happen on both sides. Does it seem like it's happening more on the two people on the right? I don't know. But is that really the question we need to be asking? No. We need to ask how we prevent this happening to anyone. And people are immediately going to say gun control. In a state like Utah, who has very, strict gun laws. So with that, I want to get your thoughts on where Turning Point USA goes from here. Of course, the first things we should be thinking about is how, I'm sure there's tremendous support already for Charlie's family, but I think people really need to rally behind his family and also celebrate, mourn, of course. We have to mourn such a beautiful life lost, a beautiful person and a beautiful life lost. We have to mourn that as human beings. We have to go through grief. But then we also have to build on the beautiful legacy that he left at such a young age. And I hope that people will do that. That they will, I think Charlie would want us, I don't know him personally, I never met him. I think he would want us to, just through his words and his actions, for us to continue the work that he did and not be afraid to speak or to do those things. What do you think, Victor?
Very well said, Dr. Slowinski, and I surely do hope that we're not past the point of no return when it comes to a domestic conversation, because I think this event can be life-changing to many. Just after the news about the Ukrainian refugee that was murdered in a public transit, and I think it's going to be quite difficult for the society to digest all that violence that just happened in a span of 1 week. What I also think is that for Turning Point USA, it's important to double down, and Charlie's memory will forever be captured in the work that this organization does, great work that they do. I certainly had a lot of hope that he'd survive. You mentioned that it was probably a rifle, and we understand that that shot and the horrible clip that started circulating all over social media, which I do hope it didn't, because I'd rather people share a picture of his family and celebrate his life and achievements, that awful graphic content that we're not
we're
going
never
to
going to show
demonstrate.
that on our show. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
We're never going to show that.
I think I was really hoping that would be sort of a Donald Trump miracle, where Charlie survives and becomes even more vocal and lives through this, as we've seen with Donald Trump. But somewhere deep down, I knew that it's unlikely we're going to get to see that miracle. Unfortunately, this is what happened. So now it's our obligation as supporters, as conservatives, and people who share same values and ideas to proceed and continue on. I'm pretty sure that's what Charlie would want.
And not just even as conservatives, just as faithful Americans. I mean, who have similar values. I mean, people don't always want to get put in a box, and that's fine. You don't have to have a label. But if you believe in values like Charlie Kirk did, protecting the unborn, that we need borders to keep our country safe. We need to keep our people safe. We also have rights that protect us from if the government became tyrannical. The first things that this from living in Eastern Europe, and my family as well, that one of the reasons why communism and these other ideologies were successful is, what did they do? They took all the guns away, and they never allowed people to protect themselves. It would be interesting to see, what happens on that debate now with gun control. But I think it's going to be, even if you do have gun control, which that's still an open debate. Will you get to the point where people wouldn't be able to protect themselves if there was a tyrannical government? So that's why the Second Amendment was there. So it's hard to say where we go forward. I hope we have people who will be mature enough and kind enough and just respectful enough to have an honest discussion about what happened and how abhorrently wrong that was for someone to be murdered like that. Anyone, but especially in such a public way, in a political assassination. So I think the terms are important in terms of domestic terrorism, potentially. We don't know all the facts yet, but clearly it was a political assassination for sure. Charlie Kirk was murdered most likely for his politics and his beliefs. And that's going to send a strong signal for people. I hope they will still try to find their voice, and I hope that people who are opposed to them will also see how crazy it is to get to extremes, to be willing to take the life of another person that you disagree with, and how wrong that is. And that's not a life that we want for this country. And I know it's not a life that Charlie Kirk wanted for any of his Americans. I had a hard time doing this show because, like you, I had that lump in my throat, the same kind of lump when he was shot, and I was also believing and praying to God that he would survive somehow, knowing that it was really unlikely from just the video. I had that same feeling, the exact same feeling on July 13th when President Trump was shot. The exact same. Even though I saw him stand up and he looked like he was going to be okay, I had that same sense, of uncertainty and vulnerability. And a lot of people are feeling that right now. And I can only say, if you're a person of faith, praying in times of need is super important. And this is a time of need for our country. And it's 100% fine to pray. People are going to say, well, praying won't get rid of the guns. Well, praying does so much. And Charlie Kirk was a strong advocate of prayer. He was a strong advocate of faith. I think one of the things that I really liked about him, and then maybe you could share this, Victor, in Arizona, is how much Turning Point USA based their organization on Christian principles. And they weren't afraid to bring pastors on the show, or Charlie wasn't afraid to, on his Sunday shows, he would have, religious leaders come in and talk. He would debate, people from other faiths. He was very grounded for such a young man in his faith. We're going to have time during the next few days to get back on and with more details and then talk about how this affects Americans going forward. But I think it's important for us to get on and all people to get on and just be grateful to God for the life we had, the time that Charlie was here with us on the earth and doing such great work. And what an example he is to young people. I'm hearing from people that Inti and Turning Point USA and have connections with the organization of how many young men in particular believe that Charlie Kirk saved their lives. They also sometimes give credit to Dr. Jordan Peterson, but there are people out there who connected with Charlie because he was young and he was so well spoken and he was so smart and believed in his values so well. He lived his values. That's what made his argument so strong, is when you debated Charlie Kirk, you couldn't find all these terrible things about him to make him a hypocrite because what he said he believed and he acted on. And so I want to end the program with us just praying for Charlie's family, for his young boys and his wonderful wife and the rest of his family who love him and are going to go through a very hard time. But a lot of Americans, we want to pray for them too, who looked up to Charlie and now feel lost, perhaps because he's not there. And we need other people to step up and do the work that Charlie did, that's for sure.